Hey there, everybody. Brian King here. I have a special guest. My oldest boy, Zach, is here. He's back home from college, and he said it earlier today. And I'll let him kind of tell a little bit about himself in a minute, but the reason I brought him on is because there's been a lot of conversation both through my email and on my profile today about how to help kids overcome this incredible resistance with homework, especially the number one reason: it's boring. I don't like it because it's boring. I'm not going to do it because it's boring. You can't make me do it because it's boring. And parents seem to be out of ideas in how to help kids understand this. And ironically, we were having the conversation in our own home last night, and my wife, Kath, asked Zach, are you enjoying school? Do you enjoy the studies? Because Zach was always very diligent and got mostly A's and a couple B's all through high school. So his answer to that question, do you like the studies, was kind of interesting. Do you remember what you said, bud?
Yeah, I said that a lot of it isn't necessary. Like a lot of the classes I'm taking, the gen eds that I'm supposed to take, they just don't seem necessary.
And you know what? That was the same experience that I had in school. And kids are probably a little bit more vocal about it today, asking, why do I need this? When am I ever going to use this? And we're kind of hard-pressed to give our kids a good answer when we know that a lot of this material is busy work. No offense to my teacher friends out there, but a lot of it is kind of useless. It's stuff you can Google. It's nothing you should be made to memorize for a test. And I remember many years ago, I was giving an in-service for an auditorium full of teachers. And one of the teachers asked me, how do I motivate my students to care about the material? And I asked her, well, what motivates you? What do you find exciting about the material? And her answer just made my jaw drop. She says, well, I teach it because the district tells me to. And that was shocking. So a teacher that's teaching it because she's supposed to, not because she cares about it. So how on earth are the kids supposed to get motivated if you yourself feel like it's a have to? Think about that. And in terms of those that are watching, I really want to hear from you. Please comment in below as we're talking here and tell us, what is your experience with homework? What's your attitude towards it? And be honest, because when we're trying to support our kids in teaching them to value doing homework, we can't be hypocrites. Because otherwise what we're going to tell them is not genuine, and it's certainly not going to be helpful. So share your 2 cents below and let us know what you think about it. So Zach, you were saying you found a lot of it unnecessary, and I happen to agree with you. I see the kind of stuff your brothers bring home now, and I see it as a lot of busy work that's kind of wasting their time. It's not going to teach them any meaningful skills. So even though you saw it as being a lot of it's unnecessary, how did you find the motivation to do it anyway?
Well, in the case of high school, all your homework was graded, and given how much they gave to you, and it was oftentimes like a good chunk, maybe even half of your grade, your overall grade. Basically, my goal was the way I view things is there's a start goal and an end goal, and I view this with every scenario I'm in. The case with homework, the start goal is starting the homework, and the end goal, which is what I focus on, is getting finished with the homework and being able to do the stuff I want to do.
So in other words, it sounds like you're kind of rewarding yourself. Your reward for getting the homework done is you get to do something fun?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is something that he did for himself. Some of it might have, rubbed off from hearing me talk about this stuff all the time, but he decided that the homework wasn't a conflict with fun. It wasn't denying him fun. It was a means to an end in some respects. He saw it as, by getting through this activity, I get to reward myself with something fun. It's thinking in terms of dessert after dinner. If you clean your plate, you get some ice cream. You don't see dinner as this obstruction to having the Twinkie or the ice cream. You see them as being related to each other. One thing I see a lot of schools doing these days, I think it's for 2 reasons. What I see them doing is they're making homework optional. They're giving the kids homework and they're saying, this can help you master this material better. This will help you understand it better. Do it if you want to. And a lot of kids aren't doing it because they realize it's really a waste of time, especially our kiddos with ADHD and Asperger's. They're thinking, man, I'm not being held accountable for this stuff. Fine, I'm not doing it. And it doesn't get done. And that, I think, is in part because the teachers are overworked. They've got way too much to do. So I think it's in part letting the teachers have a little breathing room by not having to grade all the homework. And there's also a lot of research out there that says homework doesn't increase knowledge. It doesn't increase a sense of mastery. So it's basically a waste of time. And I'm grateful that a lot of schools are paying attention to this and giving everybody a break, including the teachers. But for some of the schools that are still holding our kiddos accountable and saying, you've got to do this, you've got to get it done, you're being graded for it. And there are some kids that'll say, I don't care if I flunk out. I don't care if I do good in school. And it's really hard to argue with that. Hey, Wynn, Alyssa, Michael, thank you so much for joining in. Please comment and let us know your opinions on this topic of how to overcome boredom with homework. I mean, do you find homework boring? Did you find it boring when you were in school? Do you have a hard time giving your kids a good reason to be motivated and care about homework when you found it just as boring as they do? Because we're looking at some situations here where parents are saying, my kid won't do his work. He's saying it's so boring, but I know he's going to flunk out of school if he doesn't learn to take it seriously. We're brainstorming ideas here for how to help them find the motivation anyway. Win? Yeah, I'm right there with you. I believe in no homework. I mean, there are many times where if I don't understand the directions, I'll send a note back with my kids and say, teach them how to do this. I have no idea. In other words, keep it in school. Accomplish what you need to in school, period. Now, one of my good Facebook friends is she does a lot of homeschooling. She works with a lot of homeschool parents. And I asked her this question, how do you overcome this problem with homework? And one of the things I took away from her example is something I did with Zach, because we homeschooled you how many times? Twice?
At least twice.
There were twice where I pulled him out of school because either the teachers were so horrible that he was stressed out and couldn't function in that place, or the bullies were coming after him and the school did nothing about it. And it became a detriment to his emotional and mental well-being. So I pulled him out and homeschooled him. And do you remember how we did your homeschooling?
We did it through Khan Academy, and we also did a lot of research, having me research different things on the web. Basically, I'm trying to think of it like getting a feel for, educating ourselves more even.
And what kind of things did we focus on when we did your studies?
We focused on social skills. Sometimes we did a little bit of everything like history, but a lot of it was social skills. A lot of it was things that you would experience in the real world, helping prep for the real world.
And a lot of what we did is pulled in current events, and you see what's happening now. When you're doing a lot of stuff that's textbook driven, and it's not connected to anything you see every day. It's not connected to anything you experience that directly impacts you. So it's very difficult to generalize it and think, why should I care about this? So with everything that's happening now, if I was homeschooling Zach right now, we'd be having a field day with this election cycle. Talking about the income disparities, talking about, all of the different issues that are coming up. You just asked me this morning, how come there isn't some law to get Trump out of the race? Because it's being demonstrated more and more just how corrupt he is, and he's no better than anybody else. But then we could explore, okay, well, if they did want to replace a candidate, how could they do that? How did they put those systems in place? How are these different organizations functioned? How are they governed? And these things that are relevant to his question about why does the world work the way it does? If I want to accomplish a certain goal, how do I do it? So you can really expand all the different subjects just by finding a way to take what it is he's curious in, and attach it to a current event. Heck, we live on the internet. We have access to all the information we want. Maybe something's not happening in the U.S., but maybe it's happening over in Russia, and maybe that impacts us, and we can research it and tie it in. So one of the benefits that homeschooling has over traditional schooling is the education can be very fluid. It isn't tied to whatever questions lie in the objective section of the chapter, because every day you live, you're dealing with civics, social studies, world events, politics, philosophy. Why do people live what they do? What are your beliefs? How do you assign meaning to things? There are issues about religion, radical Islam, the LGBT movement. So you're always bumping into religion and things like that. If you're paying attention to current events, every subject you want to cover is happening somewhere on the news or happening somewhere on the web. So it's accessible. But if you want to tell your kids that your responsibility is what's on the page, and you need to try and learn that in a vacuum and not try and connect it with the rest of the world, yeah, your kid's going to likely be frustrated and say it's boring. But when you show them that the real events of the world are in their face and impact their everyday life, suddenly it's much easier to motivate them, because if they don't understand how these things function and they're not prepared to respond to it, they're going to go into the world helpless. They're going to choose to be an uninformed victim where life happens to them because they are deliberately choosing ignorance. So that's kind of my take on it. Tiffany, Stephanie, Daniel, thank you for joining in. Do you have any thoughts on this? How to help people or kids that find homework boring, how to help them connect with it in a way where they feel motivated and see the value in it. Now, Zach, you're in college now.
Yes.
So do you see that suddenly the information has become more relevant to you? Or do you think it's similar in that some of it kind of seems like it's not particularly relevant?
It depends on the class. Like English composition, which is basically like a writing course, like just writing a bunch of essays. Like, based on what the teachers told me, it's like preparing for classes where you have to write college essays, which is, in the long run, not very useful, but like, say if you want to write a book or something, you'll learn some literary skills, how to make your sentences flow more properly, which I've been gifted with writing essays, but it's helping me get a little more specific. But in terms of homework, with statistics, my math course, well, I find it very relevant, what he's teaching in class, because statistics are everywhere, for sure. But the homework in this case, it's the first math class I've come across where the math homework is optional. Like, he recommends that you do it, but he won't tell you to do it. I have trouble doing it because of executive functioning issues at times, but when I do get to it, I do it because I want to know more about about the notes he's given us in class, and I want more examples of it so that I can jam it in my brain faster. That's my motivation for doing the homework.
Hey, Stephanie, you said that you make games with it because your daughter loves games. Can you tell us how old she is? Because I know depending on the age of the child, there are different approaches you would use. I'm thinking in terms of kids that are of the teenage years, where they're a lot more into their electronics. They seem to want to be entertained every moment of every day. They want to be just mindless drones and consumers and just suck in information and not have to make too many decisions. Okay, 13. So this is relevant. Please, by all means, Stephanie, share some of the games that you play, because we might be able to move this up to kids who are a little bit older, generalize it more. But it's really the real world learning here that's key. If you find a kid that says they don't care about the world, this is a kid that should probably have some responsibilities put upon them so they experience the world as it is. Because one of the things we've done with our boys early on is required them to be responsible for the things that they most benefit directly from. Okay, Stephanie, you said we use math in the kitchen as in cutting pies. Absolutely. You can teach fractions with the measuring cups. You can teach time passing by putting the timer on. Okay, in an hour this will be ready. For kids that have a hard time with time management, Our kids, I think there was one day, you were 11, Zach, and Aiden was 7, and they decided to make us breakfast. They made scrambled eggs and bacon. They set the table, and this was because we were working with them for months on how to do these things themselves, because we were not going to send helpless kids into the world. We were proactive about it. We asked ourselves the question, what skill sets must they have to be effective in society, to be able to meet their needs? Cooking, cleaning, doing their laundry. Connor is now, 11 or 12?
He's 11.
Connor's 11. Since he was 5 years old, he's been doing his laundry. And the kid has Asperger's and ADHD, okay? So I hear from a lot of parents, oh, my kid's lazy, or my kid doesn't want to do chores. If you require it, then it will happen. I consider them doing things for themselves as payment for being parts of this family. They don't want to help bring in the groceries. I'm going to say, fine, what are we taking back? What are you not going to eat? What do you not get to eat if you're not going to participate? We demand reciprocity. We don't give them the sense of saying, oh, I don't feel like it, I'm going to my room. Great. When you come back out, be prepared to do what I just asked you. I made it non-negotiable. And now the kids are so proactive. They look for opportunities to help. They look for opportunities to learn things because they've learned to value it. And a lot of parents, I think, just don't have the wherewithal to stand up to their own children. They allow themselves to be walked all over. And one of the reasons this happens is because they have a spouse that's given up or is in denial, saying, oh, they're going to figure it out sometime. One day, the world will knock them on their butt. No, that's an excuse to get out of parenting. You can't think that way. You have to remember this. If I don't teach my child how to effectively work in this world, my kid will be out there helpless, and my kid will hate me for not preparing them. If you see that as the eventual outcome for not preparing your kid, you will not slack off. That's just my take on it. So, Zach, I'll be perfectly honest, growing up with me and, now Kath as your parents, what have you learned from us in terms of the value of educating yourself?
Well, I've learned that in terms of the value of educating myself is that there's a whole world of knowledge out there that schools often don't teach us, and this is becoming increasingly clear to me. I find reasons to enjoy school, but in the long run, it just doesn't do me much good unless my career of choice requires it. But keeping yourself up to date with what's going on in the world, like politics, I'm very passionate about politics. Religious views, how families in America are getting by, how the economy's doing. It gives you a sense of what the real world's about and what you need to know before you can go into it.
So basically, he's realizing that having a thirst for knowledge, being informed, gives you more options. So many people that I find, and this goes for parents too, that believe there's nothing they can do. Oh, I've done everything. I've tried everything with this kid. Really? When's the last time you read a book, asked for help, hired a coach, and got additional information? Or were you so fixated on doing it yourself that you slammed the door to new information because your ego prevented you from being taught, or your ego prevented you from being helped? And you know what? You're not the only one that feels this way, because we live in a culture that oftentimes makes us feel stupid for asking for help, because ever since we were kids in school, you asked for help from the teacher. Did you try it yourself first? How many times did you try it before you came to me? So you're getting the message that, oh, I failed because I asked for help. I should be smarter than that. And kids make the decision that I'm stupid if I ask you for help. And sometimes parents do that too. Say, I'm not going to teach you how to do it. You go back there and you figure it out. There are some parents that do that too. You teach your kids that interdependence and self-advocacy is weakness. And there are some people that grow up become parents and continue to think this way. They think, man, I can't tell their parents I don't know what I'm doing. I can't tell them my kid talks back to me because I'm the only one in the world it happens to. Guess what? There are millions of people that this happens to. Why? Because none of them are talking to each other. None of them are getting advice because they all feel ashamed to speak up. Think about that for a minute. There are so many people out there that believe they're alone when there is a community of people that get it and are screaming out inside to get some support and get some help. The reason I'm doing this video right now is because I've heard from people that say they are having this struggle with their own kids and don't know what to do. So what am I doing? I'm bringing my son in the conversation. I'm putting it on Facebook, and all these people are watching and commenting. Why? Because they can relate. Because you're not alone. And after we're done talking here, I want you to continue this conversation. Keep adding comments about what your experience has been and how you helped your kids or yourself overcome this boredom of homework. It seems like that the prevailing opinion here is that you have got to go beyond the text on the page. You've got to connect it to something relevant in these kids' lives. It's got to be connected to something that they care about every day of their life in order to make it relevant. So it may take a little bit more work and creativity on your part, but guess what? You don't have to figure it all out between your own two ears. You can go on Facebook, you can email a good friend, you can find a group on Facebook, whether it's parents or homeschooling, and say, I'm struggling with generalizing my kids, whatever subject it is, to their everyday life. What are your ideas? And I promise you, these people will generously share with you. So I hope this has been a helpful conversation. Thank you very much, Zach, for taking some time out to participate with us here.
Yeah, I'm happy to help.
Jessica says that her son Clay agrees with Zach. The more you learn, the more options you have in life. Absolutely. And he digs the Pokemon shirt.
Thank you. I'm a big fan.
So thanks for chiming in, everybody. I hope this has been helpful for you, and keep the discussion going. Take care.